Hello everyone, how are you doing?
Good.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we are good.
Yes,
How
Hello, Mr. Shaman, how are you doing?
good, Mr. Kumal. How are you?
I'm okay. What you have discussed yesterday? What you talked about?
Yeah.
We
Oh, go ahead.
we discussed about exceptions.
What is an exception?
Exception is a mechanism to handle an error, and we have seen there are three types of exceptions: the checked, the unchecked, and the error. The difference between the checked and unchecked is the checked is a compiler time, and the unchecked is a runtime error. And we have seen the exception hierarchy. And also, we also checked about the try-catch block. The two types, the try-catch blocks.
Okay. What are the different types of exception we talked about, Shaman? Shaman,
Yes. So we have a check exception, which deals with the compiler time error, the unchecked exception, which is a runtime exception, and then the error, which is not an exception, but it's beyond our control, something that has to do with the memory or within something that the something that you can't do. It's something to do with the
Okay.
memory.
okay. So, which is a super class of your exception class?
The trouble.
Yes. Okay. As I have already shared the material yesterday, did you get a chance to do the same practice the coding which is there in the materials or not?
yes, sir. I did it.
Okay, what about others? I asked you to do the practice the code which is there in the materials. Did you get a chance to do that or no?
Yes, I tried.
Shaman, Miran,
Yes,
I,
yes,
Rene,
yes,
you did that?
yes.
Okay. Let me share my screen and then from there we'll start. Sorry. That's what we have discussed about with exception handling and without exception handling. What's the difference? And then we talk about try with multiple catch block. Now let's try to go through my Eclipse. So this is a project that we are working on it, and let me create a class. And my class name is exception handle. My class name is exception handle. In the package, main method required, yes. Okay. Now, inside the main method, I'm going to write some code. Let me make it full screen. we're going to say before exception an integer value. I'm writing the same code what we have discussed yesterday, then I will keep changes in the same code. So the value equal to 100 divided by 0. Then I'm going to write some code. System.out.println is a exception. Okay. Now let me print the value here. Say let's run this code. What I can see the output is I can see before exception. Before exception will execute. Yes or no? The line number 6 will execute or not?
Yes, sir, it did.
What I will get the output if I run this code.
It executes the line number 6, but the rest of the code will not execute. It throws an arithmetic expression.
Arithmetic exception. Yes. So it got executed.
Genetic, yeah.
And then we got arithmetic exceptions, java.lang. So arithmetic exception is belongs to my default packages. All the exception classes belongs to my default package. And it said you are trying to divide it with 0. And it's giving you the line number where this error occurs, line number 7. Let me just click here. This is going to highlight the line number 7. Now, because of the one line of error, the application has got terminated and the rest of the code is not going to execute out. Right? There is no compilation error. If I will remove this semicolon, we call it as a compilation error. We call it as a checked exception. You can check there and you can fix it out. Okay, so syntactically it is not a, it's not a wrong. Syntactically it's correct only, but logically it is a wrong here. That's what we talked about yesterday session, right? So the main purpose of use the exception handling, the main purpose to introduce this Java exception handling mechanism is to handle the runtime error. So how can I handle this error? By using try catch block. So as we know that you need to use the try within method. So I have already my main method is there. So in the try block, I'm going to put all the suspected code. Which I want to protect. And then every try block is followed by catch block. I don't know what type of exception it is. I'm just going to call my superclass of all the runtime exception, because I don't know what type of exception is going to raise here. So I'm going to say superclass exception reference, and I'm going to say that e dot print stack, or you can simply print the e notation. Now let me run this code. It is going to skip only the line wherever this error is found out, but the rest of the code, I mean my after exception statement got executed. That means I understood there is an issue with my try block. When I trying to divide by 0, there's a problem. So what I can do, I understood the problem, what the logical I made a mistake in my block of code. So I will just write here. Now let's run this code. There is no job for a catch block because there is no exception occurred in the try block. Whenever any exception is going to occur in the try block, then simply it will pass to the respective catch block. But here I have only one catch block which is handling any types of exception. It is a super class of other runtime exception, right? So it knows how to handle the multiple exception here. So this is scenario 1 when we understood the arithmetic exception is going to occur based on the scenario. Now let's try to do with another scenario. Let me just hit this the comment line, and I'm going to write here integer array. So new integer of the size of array. I'm going to write here 4. That means this array will allow me to store only 4 values. This array is going to allow me to store the 4 values 0 to 3, as you know already. If there is no array, if there is no value is assigned to the array, if there is no value is assigned to the array, then by default it store the null, as you know already. That is a 0. Right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to get the value of I'm going to say array of 4 index. I'm trying to print array of 4 index. Okay, now let's try to see. What is telling here? Before exception is got executed, but the same package at java.lang, it says array index out of bound exception. That means array index 4 is not reserved into the array that you are trying to get, because when I will say array size is 4, then it will reserve for me 0 to 3 index, but I'm trying to get array 4 index. There is no index, so that's what we got error, array index out of bound exception. But I never changed anything in the catch block. I never changed anything in the catch block, right? So I have a catch, the same catch block, which is aware of all the different types of exception that is going to raise in the try block, right? So in some scenario, if you don't know what type of exception is going to raise up, no matter whatever the exception is going to raise, but one catch block that you need to handle it, then one catch block is sufficient. But some scenario you will say, no, I want to handle different exception by different catch block. That means your try block will pass to the exception to the respective catch block based on the exception which raised in the your try block, right? So in such scenario, you are going to use the multiple catch block. So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to write another catch block here. Let me just copy this. So this is called something try with the multiple catch block. We can write. I'm going to write at least 4 multiple catch block. Okay, now I'm going to make this exception is a arithmetic exception. So here, let's talk about later this exception. Let's put in the semicolon. So when I'm trying to write the second catch block is an arithmetic exception. The second catch block is arithmetic exception. It's throwing a compilation error. It's throwing some compilation error. What is the reason behind this? Why this catch block is throwing in a compilation error? The reason why it is throwing a compilation error, because already super class is there in top of me, which is handling all types of exception. Already super class is there in top of me. That is the first catch block. The first catch block is already handling the runtime, is handling all the runtime exceptions. So there is no use to declare. There is no meaning to declare a second catch block which can handle the arithmetic exception. So what you need to do is, when you have a such practice to handle multiple exception, then make sure you should not catch your super class of exception. Should not use the first catch block with your super class exception, that is your exception class. Now let's remove this comment line, and here I can write something called a number format exception. Yeah. So you can see I have an arithmetic exception. That means what? If something goes wrong related to arithmetic exception, then it will pass to this particular catch block. There is no job of these two catch block, right? If there is something number format exception, then it will check, is there any specific catch block which can handle such exception? Yes, number format exception, then it will pass to the second catch block. Out of this is something, let's say array index out of one exception. Is there any catch block that can handle array index out of one exception? No. Then it will pass to the my super class, right? So now I'm going to write one more catch block also. Say array index out of one exception. Out of bounds. Okay, spelling mistake. So I have a different exception reference, right? So each exception class, sorry, each catch block, they are responsible to represent the exception. But there are many different way of approach to express the expression. There are many different way of approach to express the your exception. Okay, so I can simply print the exception object, right? And apart from that, I can simply say e dot print start trace. This is alternate way you can use, and something you have a messages that you want to print here. Or index, you can print your messages, that whatever you want to describe. Array index error, something. Okay, and say get message. You can also do. So its return type is a string. So we need to print this. There are many different way of approach to print to express the exception here. Okay, directly you can print the exception. Directly you can call print start trace. Directly you can have some messages, and you can call get message method. Now here, this is the two scenario which already we talked about. One is the one exactly throws a arithmetic exception, and another one has throw the array index out of one exception here. Now if I'm going to run this code, let's see what happened. My third catch block is not going to catch exception. It is going to catch by array index out of one exception. It says that array index error here. It is going to catch by my third catch block says array index out of one exception, because the error is related to array index out of one exception here, right? Now if I will say something called string, let's comment line, say string name equal to, okay, then I'm going to print say okay. So I don't have my string name, there is no value, so I don't have any value, so it's null values. There is no assigned value to my name, and I'm trying to get the length here. I'm trying to get the length here. Okay, so is there any catch block that is belongs to handle this null pointer exception? No, right? So let's see who is the catch block is going to represent this exception. You can see here null. Get message is null. That means here this is not handled by the first catch block, the second catch block, and my third catch block. Okay, so it is going to handle by the last catch block, that is my super class. So if there is no exception handled by the specific catch block, then my super class will be responsible to handle this. Okay, that's what I just want to say you. So we talk about argument exception, we talk about number forward exception, we talk about so number forward exception I will tell you. Okay, let me show you one thing, that scenario also. Integer value integer. I'm going to use this array to pass some command line arguments. That will say arguments of 0, integer. This is value 1, value 2. So arguments of but this array is an integer array. This array is an integer array, right? Integer array. This is integer. Sorry, this is string array, not integer. Sorry, this is a string array, right? How can I assign the value string array to integer? It's not possible. That's why I'm getting a compilation. You can see here, type mismatching cannot convert it from string to integer because it is a string array. How can I store the integer values, right? And that is the main reason Java has introduced a wrapper class which can convert object type to primitive types. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to introduce my wrapper class which can convert object type to primitive types. So I will say integer dot parse int method, whatever the value you have, it will convert it into integer. Now the same I can say integer parse int. These are arguments of 1. Now I'm going to do integer result value 1 divided by. I'm trying to print the result here. The result. Okay, so what I need to do here, I need to pass the values. Okay, command line arguments means I need to pass the arguments during the execution of code. How can I run this code? I will go to here and I will go to run configuration. And I need to select the class. So my class name is exception handle only, which is there in the Java demo project, right? So everything is correct here. I will go to the arguments where I need to pass the argument here. So my argument value is, I'm going to say 10.0, and the second value is say 2.0. Right, there are two values which I pass. This is my value 1, this is my value 2, right? And this approach in the Java we call as a command line arguments. We are passing some arguments that need to store my default string array, which is the arguments of my main method. Now click on run button. Let's see what's happening here. So what is telling here? Before exception and after exception is executed, but here it says that java.lang.number for exception for input string, means the string array need to be converted into integer. The string array need to convert it into integer, but you have given the float values, right? You have given the float value. Then how it is possible? You cannot store that float value into the integer, right? But here I have used print start trace. So it is going to trace the line in details. It is going to trace the line in details of the code, where easily we can track and can understand. Easily we can track and understand where and what exactly the reason this program got failed and I got the error here. See, it says unknown sources. These two are the unknown sources here, right? So here it has handled by my second catch block. Clear? Now what I can do, again, I can go to the same run configurations and I can pass a integer values in place of a float. So let me go to my argument tab, and you can say my first value is 10 and my second value is 2 here. Yes, I got the value. There is no such exception has raised, so there is no job for a catch block. The catch blocks, the catch block is nothing doing here. Now, so whatever the statement I want to execute always, no matter whether there is exception or not. No matter whether there is exception or not, I just want to close the resources. I just want to execute some important stuff in my application. So you just need to write that code in the finally block. The finally block here. So no matter whether there is exception or not, always final block will execute. Now I'm going to do some changes here. My program is expecting 2 values, but I passed only 1 value. Let's see what's happening here. What I'm getting here, array index error. I got the error, array index error here. That means my string array is expecting 2 values because I have initialized 0 index and 1 index, but I passed only 1 values. So as you can see, the final block is always executing, no matter whether there is exception or not. Now let me go to again the run configuration and let me do the changes over here. So what I'm going to do is let's go to arguments and I will say another values I'm passing, say 5. Next value is a 5. Still my final block is executing. So whether there is exception or not, something you want to execute always in your code. Real-time example. You will go to the ATM machines. You want to withdraw the money, okay? But your account balance, you have a $500, but you are trying to withdraw $700. In your account balance, you have a $200. You are trying to withdraw $500. Is it possible? Not possible. So what you will get the error message? You have an insufficient amount to withdraw the money. You have a insufficient amount to withdraw the money. And then finally, you can see the console before you left the ATM machines. Thank you for using the ATM. Thank you for using this ATM. Okay, have a good day, right? Again, another scenario, you have a sufficient amount, means you have you have account balance is $1,000 and you have withdraw $500. Okay, so finally what you can say, transaction has completed, you have successfully withdraw $500. Thank you for using this ATM. Have a good day. No matter whether you have done the transactions or not, but there is some messages which is executing always finally on your console, finally on your display screen. Some message is going to display finally, right? Whether you have successfully done or not, but some message is going to execute always finally on your display screen. That is what the finally block. So no matter whether it's the exception or not, always finally block will execute to clean the resources, to close the resources, right? So what you have understood so far is, you understood the importance of the try block, you understood the importance of the catch block, writing the multiple catch block, having a different catch exception. We understood the different way of approaching the Java code to express the exception, right? And then we understood different types of exception that can be handled by the different types of a catch block. And we understood the try catch finally, the sequence that is going to be executed. So that's what we talked about before. Final block is a block that is used to execute some important code. It is always executed whether exception is handled or not, no matter. The final block follows a try block or a catch block. Okay, it's going to follow the try or the catch block. So you can see here the same thing that we have discussed. We have a try block, yes, and I have a multiple catch block. Here we can see 3 catch block, but in my code there are 4 catch block we discussed. Okay, and then finally I have my final block. Yes, in my code also I have a final block which is executing always the messages after executions, or something called the program has completed, or we can say the task has been completed, or we can say by end of the execution, something that you want to write always. Okay, so that is the finally block. Questions. What is the difference between finally and finalize? Very common interview questions. Difference between finally and finalize. Now you have an answer. Okay, forget about the finalize. You have an answer final and finally. What is the answer you need to say, Simon?
In the finally, it is followed after every try catch method. The final is the outcome that will be shown at the end of the execution of the program.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yes. So basically, final keyword we use to declare final variables, final class, and final method. Okay, and finally, we used to declare a finally block in Java code, especially in exception handling, to execute some piece of important code, no matter whether there is exception or not, right? So that is a finally, and comes to the finalize. Finalize is an object class method. Finalize is an object class method, which is invoking whenever any object is being garbage collected by your system. Any object is being garbage collected by the system. So this finalize method will be invoked as an alert message to tell, yes, this particular object is being garbage collected by your JVM. Clear? So finally, and finalize. Finalize is a method. It's object class method to invoking whenever any object is being garbage collected by your Java virtual machines. We have a finally we used to declare a finally block in the exception handling to execute some piece of code, important stuff. And the final is a keyword which you use to declare final variables, class, and methods. Perfect. Next, user-defined exception. If you're creating your own exception, that is known as a custom exception, or we can call it as a user-defined exception. So all exception must be a child of your throwable classes. Whatever you have discussed so far, array index out-of-bound exception, number format exception, null pointer exceptions, arithmetic exception, okay, or any such exceptions that we can say, which has introduced your java.lang packages. These all are the inbuilt exception class as introduced by Java. Out of these, I wanted to write some exception as per my business need. I want to create my own user-defined exception as per my business requirement. And that exception we call as a custom exception, customized exception, our own exception object, right? So how we can create that own exception object? There are 3 steps we need to follow to create a custom exception. Again, it's very important, listen carefully. How to create a custom exception? To creating a custom exception, you can follow 3 steps. First step, your exception class must be extend the your user-defined class extend the exception class. Your user-defined class extends the exception class. Step 2, create a constructor, create a parameterized constructor which can print an exception messages by our superclass constructor. Okay, and you can create an instance to invoke a constructor by using throw keyword. Practically, let's go ahead and see. Now I'm going to create another class in the same packages. Say new class, and it's something called custom exception we're talking about. Okay, so I'm going to say here class withdraw money exception is my own exception class, which has to extend my inbuilt class, that is exception class. Perfect. Now what I need to do, I need to create a constructor. It's going to print some error messages, and I'm going to say super awesome error message. That means what you have understood here, my superclass constructor has to print this error message. Means my exception class constructor is responsible to print this error message whenever I will create an instance for the withdraw money exception class. Now implementation, just I have created, now I need to implement it. Class banking service void withdraw money method. It will take a parameter float money, and it's going to throw the exception here. I'm just going to declare that exception. I'm just going to declare that exception for this method to throw this. If something goes wrong, when this method is going to execute, throws withdraw exception. Throws is already there in the material. You can understand the difference, but still I'm writing some statement. Throws keyword, because again it's important for interviews. Throws keyword is used to declare an exception. It is used for method signature. Those can use to declare multiple exception for any methods. Now I'm going to writing the logic. I hope you understood now what is the use of throws keyword here. So I'm going to write here if money is greater than or equal to 500, then sorry, less than or equal to 500, then I can say transaction has completed. And current bank balance So I'm just writing some hard code. Let's say assume that balance is $1,000. Balance subtraction of the money. Also, I'm going to use throw keyword to create an instance for that constructor. I'm going to writing. I'm just passing the parameter of the constructor, that is string, means error message. I'm to say deposit not allowed. Sorry, withdraw not allowed. Now, what I need to, I need to create object. Just call this method. And this method is going to, you can see here, unhandled exception type withdraw money exception. So the method is telling that, hey developer, this method withdraw money is going to throw a exception which we have not handled. The method already declared an exception. If something goes wrong, then this method is going to throw this exception. This method is going to throw this exception if something goes wrong inside this method, which we have not handled it, right? So what I need to do, explicitly I have not handle it. How many ways? Either I can add throws declarations or I can surround my try and catch block. So let's use surrounding with try and catch. That means I don't need to decided which exception that I need to declare in my catch, because this method is already know which exception is going to be throw, right? So simple, I have just to click surrounding try catch, and automatically this method is telling that I will throw this exception. Good. Okay, so now let's save this code and good to go to execute. It's telling that withdraw money exception is my own exception class, belongs to this packages, exception handling packages, not Java.lang packages. So this exception which I have created my own, it belongs to these packages, and it's telling that my own messages withdraw not allowed here. Withdraw is not allowed here because you are trying to withdraw more than $500. You are trying to withdraw more than $500. So if I will say only 500, I want to withdraw. Now let's see. Yes, it says the transaction has successfully completed. So current balance is 500 because my balance which I have taken as a hard code $1,000. So it says 500 we have withdraw and the current balance is only 500 is available. You need to work on the same code. It's not a complete code. You need to make it complete. I'm going to save this code. Just wait. I have saved the code, whatever we discussed so far today. So what you need to do now, assignment. Okay, let me share my screen again. I want to see this code, everyone's machine, before I start tomorrow session. That's sure. Already you know the problems, right? So try to complete banking application services. I can just give you the final output of this code, what exactly I'm looking for. The moment I will write the code, I will see banking services application. Yes. I will say option 1A. You need to write 3 methods. The first method is first it will ask you enter user ID. Okay. So you need to write the hard code, whatever that user ID. Okay, let's say for example, I'm taking something called 123. You can take any user ID, password in your code. 123 is also password. Once it is matching with your user ID or password, then it will say something called you will get 2 options, option A and option B. Option A is withdraw money. Option B is deposit money. Either it will allow to withdraw more than $500, either it will allow to deposit more than $500. If you are trying to withdraw more than 500, we already have seen what's the problem. If you want to deposit more than $500, you have to get an exception that money deposit is not allowed because of a bigger amount. Okay, so that is what I'm looking for here. If it is a valid amount, then it should say yes, deposit has completed, this is your current balance. And withdraw money, when you're trying to withdraw, then it should say that yes, the money has subtracted and this is the current balance that just before we have seen here. I'm going to say this. Before I start new concept tomorrow, I want to see this code. 3 methods. One is user login check method. One is withdraw money methods and deposit money methods. One method I already show you practically, remaining to your job. Any questions?
Sir, I have a question.
Tell
When
me.
we do the second option, deposit money, so if the balance is greater than 500, then
It is not going to allow to.
oh, it is not going to.
It is not going to allow to deposit more than $500. It is not going to allow to withdraw more than $500. That's all.
Okay, thank you, sir.
If
Yeah,
someone is
thank you.
going to do that, then you should.
Yeah, it throws an
as
exception.
you got before.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Try to complete this code. 3 method I want to see. Check login, which has to check whether that user ID password is matching or not. If it is matching, then only it will allow to deposit or withdraw. If it is deposit less than $500, yes, completed. If it is withdraw less than $500, yes, completed. More than that, exception has to throw. See you tomorrow. Bye.